Greetings, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Anime Anticlimax. Number 13, lucky number 13. But of course, we have some amazing people today. We still have Roger with us from Animazing. We have Dave, of course, from Inside Movies Galore. And of course, we have Brittany, who had been with our other group from Embria Arts. And so joining us today, very versed in animu.
That's animu.
But Dave is going to be leading our discussion today.
Yes. So today, ladies and gentlemen, if you have not been introduced to this character in anime, you should, because this character that leads two features from 1981 and onwards. Well, the first of which is called The Fantastic Adventures of Unico.
Now, let me zoom in there for you, Dave. There
which came out in 1981. But way before that, I guess, if you did not know that it was, in fact, a manga. Because it originated in the San Rio Lyrica magazine that ran from 1976 to 1979. And it is the story about a young boy unicorn who is possessed, or who possesses a special ability to bring happiness to anyone near or by him. And because of this, the gods are terrified and jealous of this power that they immediately think that he needs to die. Instead, they banish him by the West Wing, and she ferrets him off to some fantastic place. But that being said, and let me just say who the director of the this first film is. Well, before I get into the director, I want to say it was produced by Sanrio and Tezuka Productions. And remember my Kurizuka discussion? Well, the animation was done by Madhouse Studios.
Yeah.
Same studio.
Yeah. Very similar to that series.
It's totally the same thing.
And what's interesting is that Unico, these two features were all presented to Japan, Mexico, and the U.S. But this was directed by Toshio Hirata and written by Masaki Tsuji, with animation by Yoshiaki Kawajiri. If I have not pronounced that well, I am sorry. But let's go into first impressions of this first feature from all of you guys. So since you're new here, Embria Arts, why don't you tell us a little what your first impression of The Fantastic Adventures of Unico was?
It's very saccharine. To put it very simply, it is a children's anime. The first one was nicely done. It was beautiful. It had that sense of 70s to 80s anime that you would see out there. And this was a Tezuka. And those who don't know who Tezuka was, he was an infamous creator in the manga industry. They quote him as the father of anime. He's the one that brought us Astro Boy. He brought us the 09 Cyborg series, and he also brought us Black Jack, which is a wonderful and all different kinds of series. And of course, Sanrio brought us Hello Kitty and a Gretzky now.
Yes.
Which is probably one of my favorites here.
Carrots too.
Yes.
So these are absolutely two weirdly combinations clashing in. And while the two movies were made with the same character, the same creation, there is a difference in them. But the first one, it had that purity that you would see in late 70s to 90s, or the 80s anime. So I mean, it is rich that way.
Was that your first time watching it?
In bits and pieces, I've seen it before, but yeah, this was the first time fully watching it.
Okay. Yeah, when I before I go into your guys' other impressions, let me just tell y'all a little bit about my experience. Whenever my mom wanted me to sit down in front of the television and just be totally oblivious to whatever she was doing, she would tape for me these outlandish cartoons, and Unico just happened to be one of them. Both of them actually were on the same taped VHS, so I could watch them along. And I had at least 7 different weird cartoons I would watch, and this was one of them growing up. To me, finding out that they were Japanese as I was growing older, that was kind of unique and cool. And when they finally came out with the DVD, I was like, yes. And when I got them, I watched them once, but I haven't really been able to share them with that many people because, well, my fiance, she really doesn't like Japanese stuff. And then finally, when I met Brandon here, I was like, cool, maybe we can eventually talk about it or something like that. And here we are now, finally talking about it. So thank you. Not this first one, but the second one I remember immensely. But we'll get to that. Let's go over to you, Roger. Was this a first time watch for you?
Yes, this is the first time watching Unico. I'm not unfamiliar with Osamu Tezuka. I found, of course, I was a little bit concerned it's going to be a kind of like a kid's cartoon kind of format, but again, I've been surprised that Tezuka is a storyteller. So this has 2 parts. It has the innocent part, and it has the darker parts. And if you have a 3 or 4-year-old and put in front of the kid, in front of the TV, you may be surprised that all the images and thoughts of life, friendship, and death, that's kind of weaved throughout the show. Because I wasn't really expecting too much out of it, but I was surprised that it had a good storyline. Madhouse again is the king of animation. To my apologies to all the people from Sunrise that think they're the gods of anime. I really do think that Madhouse is the one. And I like my Gainax too, but excellent animation from Madhouse. Again, a very good, well put together show. It's not the first time. Again, you'll see the same theme with Leo Lion, with Kimba and Astro Boy. There's all these. Again, it's going to be storytelling, not necessarily going to be aimed at Bugs Bunny and Ronald, and the Roadrunner kind of stuff that I grew up with. Overall, I would think that the first movie was well done. It was not quite as dark as the second one. The second one was, of course, we're going to talk about a little bit later. But I tell you what, it was very entertaining to me. So thank you very much, Dave. I'm probably going to go ahead and put that in the Grand Grid sometime.
Definitely. So before I go over to you, Brandon, I want to get Jake's first impressions here.
All right.
What was this your first time watching Unico?
Interestingly enough, yes. This was the first time I had seen either of the films. I don't even think I had seen bits of it. I was not fully ignorant of Unico. I knew of it, and I had, a little bit about it, but it was not one that I had seen prior. I agree a little bit with Brittany's assessment of it being kind of saccharine, although I find that amusing considering that you were one of the people responsible for me seeing Milo Pony. Talk about saccharine.
Not saccharine.
but it does later on. I think it comes into its own. What Roger was saying about the storytelling, whatever, it is pretty saccharine early on, but as it goes on, I feel like that gets lessened a bit as the story really gets into high gear, if that makes sense. It gets better, yes, exactly. And also, it's interesting that I watched this immediately after Planes, Trains, and Automobiles. And so the whole early scene with the devil character and their whole, becoming friends, it reminded me a lot of the other one.
Yeah.
The budding friendship. And
the devil characters named after Beelzebub. So this is the devil.
Right.
So, yeah.
So overall, and did anyone else feel, one thing I did grow up with, did anyone else think that who watched it in English, I don't know if everyone did, that Unico sounded exactly like Rudolph from the old Rankin Bass cartoon?
Right.
A little bit.
Do you know who played Unico, though?
Yes, the one who plays Rita Repulsa.
Yes, the very voice of Rita Repulsa, Barbara Goodman, who has done many anime roles, and she's a old hat in the anime industry.
I found that hilarious, though, that Rita Repulsa
probably in the first film, she's probably the only actress or actor from these films that actually kept doing something. The second one, there's another actor I will point out when we get to it. But she plays Uni,
right,
and she's a well-known actress in the anime community.
Well,
I do hope eventually to watch the Japanese dub because there are some old hats there. Ichiro Nagai is in both films, and I saw that the girl in the second film was played by Sumi Shimamoto. So there's some pretty big names in the Rumiko Takahashi universe that were involved in this. So I want to see those dubs eventually. But yeah, I will say the English dub acting, it really leans into that whole saccharine kind of this is for kids vibe. But I've heard worse, and once I got used to it, it wasn't that bad,
Actually,
there were a few voices that were bad.
Yeah, what's that?
There was a few voices that grind on me, and this film, particularly Baron de Ghost's voice, kind of.
Yeah.
It's oddly enough, it's one of those. I've watched it in both, and the Japanese. It depends. If you really like when they get to those Japanese voices and they yell at the highest pitch possible, and you really like that, then you will love Unico. But it really didn't feel all that different as far as quality to me. But then again, it could be the best quality Japanese voice acting in the world, and I probably wouldn't have been able to tell whether it was that much. To me, it sounded similar quality-wise, other than it was. They were both kind of grating on my ears, but that second one.
There was one very specific one with the second one that I'll have to talk about that probably was not any better in the Japanese, but we'll talk about that when we get to it. But
we'll take that roller coaster when it happens.
For the Japanese dub, I couldn't find one, so I was kind of apprehensive about the dub. But I was surprisingly really pleased about it. I didn't really find any particular faults. I think the characters match very well. And of course, I think Kotobukijake kind of pointed out with the hunting voice from Unico. What did I hear? Where in the heck did I hear that voice from? Right. It looks like Rudolph. So, but yeah, I wouldn't mind listening. I would like to listen to the Japanese one. Though I looked around on Amazon, I looked around other places, but all of them seem to be in dubs. So it's unfortunate for that. Maybe I'd be it's in on the DVD somewhere or something like that. So maybe someday I'd be able to watch it in Japanese and either refute Septum or agree with Septum. One or the other.
Speaking of Septum, was this a first-time watch for you?
This is one where we actually have very similar ways of watching this. Not quite, but similar. There were a number of anime that I watched before I knew what anime was. And these were some of those. HBO actually commissioned a lot of anime for their children's time. And I was probably around 8 or 9 when we finally moved up from the black and white to satellite. And of course, my father had to have HBO. And he liked watching that, and I got to watch several of those, like Wonderful Wizard of Oz,
Flying House.
And of course Nickelodeon also had a lot, like in Mysterious Cities of Gold.
Yeah, the Mysterious Cities of Gold. A couple ones I would think of.
Probably The Adventures of Mark Twain.
Oh yeah. But I mean, this is the one that probably is the most memorable for me. I did have a lot of memories of this, mainly images scattered, but I did remember it enough. A lot like what David said, like with that Nutcracker Fantasy one, which traumatized the heck out of me as a child. And this one also did a little bit of that, because as a little kid, as an adult, I can see where it's like, oh, that's kind of disturbing imaging, but that's not nearly as much as when you're small and you're seeing it and you're not used to watching that kind of disturbing imagery. It kind of does an impression. So I was glad when I saw these. And by the way, not only can these be gotten at a pretty affordable rate, but they also have them on Blu-ray, and they have a combined version to where you can kind of get them both on the same.
Didn't Discotheque recently re-release them both?
Yeah, this is the Discotheque.
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yep. And so,
okay.
And same with Nutcracker Fantasy. So it was kind of cool to relive that, and then, of course, getting to watch it again. So this will be the third time I've watched this. I didn't have it taped, so I only watched it once when I was a child, but I remembered it. It stuck in my head for many years, like a lot of things. I'm sure you all have had those series that you might even not be able to recall the actual name of the series, but you like remember images like, what was that?
Mm-hmm.
This was one of those, and I was able to get it. So it was kind of cool revisiting it again. Of course, this one that we're covering is by far the most saccharine of them. But it does.
Yeah, you say that.
But this one's a lot more balanced than this one was when it comes to it, because this one balances the saccharine and the dark pieces together, and the imagination that went into this still kind of blows me away. I love the first place that they take Unico to. I think it's really cool how they do that, and some of the imagery on the fight at the end of the movie, which we'll talk about. It's just kind of cool to see, and you can't go wrong with the animation.
Oh yeah, and what's interesting is that 2 years before for this feature, they tried to adapt it to a Japanese TV pilot of some sort, and they called it Black Cloud White Feather, if I remember correctly, and otherwise known as Kiroi Kyumo Shiroi Hane, or something like that. But evidently it was kind of a failed pilot, but the original story in the manga is a little bit different than the beginning of this particular film. And I just want to go into that a little bit and explain what they thought. So apparently, Unico was born, and I guess he met a beautiful woman named Psyche, or Psyche, and well, Venus, one of the goddesses, was very jealous of Psyche or whatnot and her beauty, and she thought that Unico had made, because he had made her so happy, was why she was so beautiful. So she basically kidnapped little Unico and ferreted him away. And I guess she wasn't quite called the West Wind at that point in time. She was actually something else. But regardless, she basically banished him, and that's when West Wind picked him up and took him, wherever. But that's not how this particular animation begins. We get the backstory of, okay, so he's born to with brothers and sisters of unicorns, and evidently he makes everyone around him happy, so the gods are jealous, and first they want him to die. Well, that's too cruel. So they decide to call upon the West Wing and Wind, who is this beautiful, like, tall, whispering willow, like a lady, and she comes, takes pity on Unico, and it basically says, "I'm not going to take you to this mountain of oblivion, which is where they want him to." Well, what do we think about this beginning scenery here, where we get this whole beginning? What do you think about Unico as a character? Anyone?
Unico is a saccharine kids character that is well, that's about as good as you can go.
One other thing I want to mention, as far as impressions, and I'm sure I know you're familiar with the story, but I felt a little bit of a Little Prince vibe too with this thing, but yeah, Unico himself is kind of one of the less interesting characters.
Yeah, actually, he's one of those characters that is a constant, but really the stars are the side characters.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I mean,
I don't know if you really fell in love with the little dude. I swear that what he turns into when you really love him. I mean, when he's so cute and adorable, and suddenly he turns into this magnificent stallion. I just keep seeing in my mind when Donkey becomes the beautiful white stallion. Hey, I'm sexy.
I have to say, this was one of the characters, and I could not, for the life of me, until they said it a few times, and I must have missed it at the beginning, that they referenced Unico as a boy, because I always just picture Unico as a girl throughout the whole thing, because Unico has that girly look to him.
Yeah.
As the little character. So, I mean, while it's an interesting take, and I know Tezuka sort of wanted that childlike, sort of almost girly-like look to it. I mean, it's kind of interesting, yet at the same time a little, like I said earlier, saccharine. So I mean, you want that sweet, cute nature, but it was kind of hard to swallow as a protagonist of the film until you get to points where Unico has to transform and become a full-fledged unicorn.
Right.
Well, that's the point that Unico is so pure that makes the background characters stand out. Unico can't do anything wrong, really. If it did, it wouldn't be Unico. And as the story goes along, he gets into trouble. He has to bail people out. And of course, when there's enough love in the air and all the hearts align, we have not Captain Power, but we have the Flying Pegasus, which is interesting. I mean, there has to be some sort of gimmick, and Unico does have other powers too. He can fly. It has a rather sharp horn, and of course, it makes people has some sort of an interesting power to attract people, find people that needs them.
Yeah, it's the power to make devils horny.
Unico does
the power to lick wounds healed, apparently, also.
And a remarkable dash of complete ignorance. Listen, oh, shit, my horn.
Leave it.
Just for a day, though.
Leave it to Jacob to destroy my childhood image of.
That's what I'm here for.
But Unico kind of reminded me almost kitten-like. The way that they use the movements, the licking of the wounds, very, very much so, and especially when you transpose them like next to the actual kitten later on.
Right.
And the.
Well, in any case, so. The West Wind has taken pity on little Unico, and she's been tasked with taking him to what is this mountain of oblivion?
Yeah.
And but she takes him to a foggy land of sorts that we don't even know the name of the land. He's just plopped there because she just assumes that there's nothing there. So he gets plopped there, and I guess he just wanders over to what looks like a castle, and wanders in to see this statue-looking thing that looks like some kind of a devil. And suddenly it starts speaking to him. What do y'all think about this scene where we meet a devilish creature named Beazle?
I met Oz all over again.
I will say Beazle actually was amusing and a little bit in the part. He is definitely far better animated than the next movie versions of Devils and Demons, in my opinion. But I mean, he's at the same time he kind of grated on me a little bit, and I think it's that voice actor. That I know he's the kid, but I mean, I heard him as the annoying kid in every anime or bad Japanese film that just you want to slug, but you know you can't.
Yeah, and Beazle doesn't come off as a very lovable character neither, especially once he gets that horn for a day. In fact, he's pretty downright obnoxious towards Unico.
He's a demon of solitude, and I mean, his father and Unico killed his father essentially by trying not to die. But still,
right.
It's kind of interesting. I mean, these demons, they grow up and I guess they become statues, forever doomed to sit in solitude in one place. Which of course, then the younger, his goal is to do the same, is to get used to being alone. So you've got to, I mean, it's kind of appropriate the way that he acts in that way, because again, he's a demon of solitude, or he's trying to be anyway. So, the best thing for that is being alone. And of course, when you're not used to socialization, of course you're not going to be taught to play nice.
Right.
Well, and ultimately, being around Beazle long enough, I guess, after Beazle ends up saving Unico from drowning, which is eventually what happens.
Eventually.
Eventually, yeah.
And Unico saved him back by realizing that Beazle in fact loved him, turned into this very sexy looking unicorn, flew him back to land, and basically, well, the land became green, and suddenly the gods became aware that he was in the area, causing happiness again. We got to go. Yeah, because, well, And one thing I learned during Greek mythology is that any of the Greek gods, they got angry if people didn't pay attention to them. I mean, the gods basically, especially in the Odyssey. I mean, when they spoke to Ulysses, they basically told him that, and you can tell that the Greek mythology was heavily influenced in this particular film, because where else can you find a Greek mythology, a German, a Polish, and an Egyptian descendant in two fucking films, you know? So,
Yeah.
Well, I mean, the story starts in Greece, basically. If the deeper reading there, I mean, Venus is the Venus Greek god. West Wind is Zephyr.
Yeah.
Venus is, in fact, I thought, the Roman god, actually.
Yes, the Greek one was Aphrodite.
Yeah.
Yeah, Aphrodite. So, I mean, Greek Roman mix.
But if
they're same gods, but I mean, the origin of Uni in the story, of Unico in the story, is Greek, according to Tezuka's work. So,
if I'm remembering
it starts
correctly,
in Greece, and I like to think they've gone on to Gaul, or at that point it'd be Gaul, but it'd be Germany for the first film, and then the second film they flat out say it's Poland at some point in something I've read. So
yeah. So go ahead.
Contract killer then next.
Yeah. I want to say Zephyr is the Greek name for the West Wind, if I'm remembering correctly.
In the story, it's Zephyr.
Well, I mean, Zephyr itself is it's either Greek or Roman, but yeah, for the West Wind, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Well, in any case, the West Wind comes and ferrets little Unico away again and plots him down in the story of Moses. Oh, wait. Sorry.
Zephyr is like Uni's personal. Like he causes everyone with happiness. He infects people with happiness, and Zephyr is the opposite. She's always trying to be a downer to him. She's always trying to spoil his fun.
And the thing is, the thing you have to remember is not only does she ferret him away, also his memories are completely scrambled or erased, so that he doesn't remember what happened before.
Yeah.
Though I don't think they don't think they do that entirely the first time, because of course the one that he made friends with chases after.
Yeah.
One of the creepier characters though is sent after him, well, at least for me as a child, which was the Night Wind, which I don't know why, but that image of her flying around the sky, turning basically daylight into darkness, that image always creeped me out as a child. And
what's
things that stuck with me for a long time.
What's interesting is there's another movie. Once I had watched this one and the next one that reminded me similarly to this, and that is the Phantom Toll Booth. The Phantom Toll Booth. If anyone has seen this film, it goes from reality to animation, and there is a moment where a conductor conducts the sky, and when he conducts the sky, it turns all kinds of colors, and it reminds me of some of the colors that you see in this flying segment of the Night Wind, and so on and so forth. It just reminds me of it because it was from that time period, Yeah.
There you go. She got the live action bits on the back there.
Yep.
Yeah, that was taught. I don't know if it was taught to everybody, but at least I know as far as I was when I was in school, the book was taught to.
Yeah. Norman Juster was at least taught to me in school.
I believe he was recently passed away, if I remember correctly. But to me, the Night Wind seemed like an incredibly ineffectual antagonist.
She never really caught up.
She never really caught up. It was kind of like
she's the overarching antagonist, though, through the stories, and that's why she's kind of there, but she's not. Yeah, she's not an effective antagonist. I will say she's probably the best voice actor in the movie that I find. Was her few lines she hit perfectly.
Yeah, I would have to agree with you there. And
it's a
I guess you got to
look.
say something about this. She scared the fucking Jesus out of the gods. So I mean, their reaction to her was like, no, don't send for her. You know, that kind of thing.
Yeah,
you know,
I would say that. So don't send the Titan. Oh, okay, because there's some enemies.
No.
But it's kind of
very
like,
interesting that the gods are all angels too.
The way that she kept following behind, but it seemed like she was ever present and following, but yet somehow never caught up. And it was like I'm kind of like thinking of two images. One is the scene in the Holy Grail, where you have there's two guards looking at the guy running at the castle, and every time they're further and further away until they're right on them. And then like I'm also thinking about like the whole horror movie cliche of the killer walk, where the killer's just moseying along and somehow is always right there.
Well,
and I've kind of feel like this might be there. Like she's kind of just moseying, but like not even trying, just kind of like stopping every few minutes to take a break. And
she's Night, man. She can only go where Nightfoot goes.
Right.
I think they did a chase where they were almost caught by her, but she manages to elude the Night Wind.
Right.
And that's pretty much the end. I mean, Night Wind really is just that thing that kind of drives it forward. Gotta move on.
Yeah.
Move on to the storyline. Let's move it along.
Deus Ex Machina.
Well, anyways, back to the Moses basket. Unico is plopped in the middle of some grass on a grassy knoll and is left without anyone nearby again. And suddenly he starts to hear a song, which comes from a river nearby of a basketed creature that goes by the name of Katie, or in the Japanese language, Keo or Kea or something like that.
I don't know.
And she gets caught by a vine, and he is on a bridge and just literally tumbles into the basket. And that's how they kind of meet. What do you think about this character, Katie?
Katie almost reminds me of a Toriyama character.
Yeah.
Okay.
I actually liked Katie. She was one of the few characters in either movie that really resonated with me at all.
Cat, tuxedo socks, cat, kind of kitty. That's nice.
She did remind me of Poir from Dragon Ball.
Yeah.
As Brandon pointed out, yes. So that's one of the first things she reminded me of when I saw her. I did like her singing her song. I did not like the song that got sung afterwards. It was a bit grainy, but we did get a view of Hello Kitty in a brief sort of go by, and that song that was amusing. But I kind of like the cat of Katie. I find her as the first possible cat girl. I don't know.
She reminded me of a combination of Poir and Bulma.
To me, she was just a cute little kitty, and the only thing, she had an obsession with witches, which was kind of creepy, but she wanted to be
human, and
she wanted to either meet a witch or become a witch, and she'd heard.
Yeah.
But in any case, the two Unico and Katie become friends of a sort. And I guess they come across a cottage in which an old woman happens to live. Although Katie starts to think that she is a witch.
Right. Well, she takes one look at the cottage and says, "A witch lives here."
Well, you take one look at the woman, and that's a witch.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
Well, and when all she brings to the table is a bag of sweet potatoes, that's not exactly what Katie was expecting. She was like, "Hey, I was expecting something more mumbo jumbo. What the heck is this?" And then she starts chasing around. And then she starts chasing around that Katie did again, you know?
I tell you, this was one of the times you see, like, you know, we talked about Unico's always spreading happiness and joy, but he could be a real buzzkill, too. And, like, with Katie, he was always being a buzzkill because she really wanted to chase those insects. And just
Unico's like, ew.
That's nasty. Eat that raw sweet potato.
He's like, let me go out and find something let me go out and find something for you. And then, of course, the old woman comes in with the bag of sweet potatoes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sweet potatoes are good if they're cooked.
The bug would have been
kind
less
of bad
nasty
for you if they're raw.
That was not a bug. That was a cockroach.
Of course.
There's more nutrients probably in that cockroach than in all those sweet potatoes.
Right.
My
And she
favorite.
found out on that, and she wanted to share with Unico. And of course, Unico said, "Hell no! Get that thing away from me."
Well, all you got to do is go slimy yet satisfying.
Actually, a roach would probably be more crunchy.
Outside the top than inside.
Katie brought more personality out of Unico than most of the people or animals that he came into contact with.
Yeah.
Well, in any case, one thing we forgot to somewhat mention when he was with Beazle is that one of Unico's powers is the fact that he can grant wishes.
Yeah.
But only if they like him well enough, you know. Or I don't think it's love per se. I think it's more
It's
like,
likeness.
you know,
Likeness.
it's likeness. So, Katie wants to be a human so bad. At least during this first night, and he hears her plea, and he basically thinks to himself, he wishes that he could, like, grant her wish. So the next day when she's out and about and whatnot, I guess the blanket did something for him to be able to do it without no one seeing, you know. So Pouth, she's a human, and she's like unbalanced, like, you know, Ariel first out of fish spins, you know, and as she thanks him, and then a little short while later, after like doing some chores and shit, she's like, well, fuck this, I'm gonna figure out what more a girl can do. So
she thinks the witch did it.
She thinks the old woman it really was a witch.
The witch did it.
Yeah.
So what do you think about what Unico goes and finds her doing? Because he basically sees that the old woman is like lugging these like these like big things of wood, and she's like stumbling over herself, and she really could be a big help to her, being as young as she is as a human. So what do y'all think about what he finds her doing in the fields?
Well, she's been a cat most of her life, so the fact that she did as much to help the old woman as she did is kind of amazing for a cat. But Unico is quite displeased to find that, you know, she's going off and being selfish and
Being a cat.
yeah, well, yeah.
You know, surprised. Now she suddenly becomes a human, and now she wants to explore what's to be human.
Well, the thing is, when you're when you're at home alone with your own cat, when you pay attention to it, it like purrs and is around you for all the while you're petting them. But you stop paying attention to it, it'll go off and be lazy, you know. So,
well, cats are naturally mysterious. They
see. But in any case, moving on. So, I guess it's somewhat shortly after this that suddenly a stranger appears on a horse, a mysterious figure, and this character is kind of strange because at first he's like talking mysteriously to her, but then he's like talking to himself, and I'm wondering, well, is this a crazy guy? Because you know, as an adult, I mean. As a kid, I'm not really thinking about that much. I'm just thinking this guy is looming. He's like tall. He's kind of lanky. He looks like Captain Harlot now or whatnot, you know. But I almost see a bit of like Vampire Hunter D in him a little bit too.
Almost.
He's kind of a parody in some senses of the princes, the Disney princes that just come wandering through the forest to see all these women in distress, so to speak, so that he can sweep them off their feet. And kind of presents himself like that, but you know, strangers like that can't really be trusted. So
he's a German. Well, he's a German baron. I mean, flat out.
Well, yeah. Supposedly, Katie's heritage is supposed to be German, that we know of, and from what I can see, this old lady appears to be like. It looks like she's Polish.
Maybe, yeah.
So, well, she might be, but in any case, we get this whole scenario, this commentary where Katie has never seen like a man in her life, like not as a human, and she's like puppy love, you know. It's love at first sight for her. So she's kind of already at the first like moment he spoke, already like in awe of him, at least. And he invites her to and calls himself Baron de Ghost, if I remember correctly. And invites her to a party at his castle, and tells her that he is lord of this forest, and she acts clueless, and he is like, she must be a child. So he says, don't tell anybody, but meet me back here, and I'll show you the way or some shit. So
yeah, one of the first children show depiction of date rape.
Exactly.
Oh, I was
definitely further in there. Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
What it
I was
is?
definitely thinking that whole scene was
getting her drunk, getting her prepped for whatever he's going to be doing, or a little bit later. A little bit was kind of a little bit dark towards that part. Now you start figuring out this guy is not all nice and shiny, and looking at her in certain ways. So I want to make sure this woman's mine. Kind of look. I use my special charm on her.
Well, in any case, night comes upon. She awakens, and she gets to the spot where she met him, and she's like, "Sweet, I am going to go and meet my knight that I have seen, or lord, or whatever." And that's when Unico comes up behind her.
Well, first. You see when she gets he follows, or tries to, but she comes across a shrubbery covered in these very, very, very tasty looking berries.
Well, that's a little afterwards.
Yeah, that's afterwards.
Yeah.
She's got to get transformed back.
Well, you know that these berries are no good because the Count's been feeding these berries to the animals.
That's after she's run away from Unico while that injured monkey is being helped.
Oh yes, he was helping the monkey.
Unico licks the monkey
because once she goes in the forest, she's attracted by these red berries. And then takes one, then gets completely drunk off of one. I mean, who gets drunk off of one berry?
Well, the way I was reading
berries, man.
The way I was reading that was that the prince had planted for her the rare roofie shrub.
Boilermaker, did you serve that berry?
No. I'll probably add it to it in the future.
Yeah, that actually is if you think about it, that's something you don't typically see in a child's cartoon.
Well,
one of the things I was thinking about when watching that, and this is something that reminds me of it because it's similar. A lot of these Japanese children's cartoons do have some slight adult themes to them.
Yeah,
I think, but a lot of times Japanese culturally respect their children a little bit more as far as what they're shown to understand than we do, kind of.
This is one part where the movie did take a pretty clear track, different than, let's say, My Little Pony. I wouldn't really expect them to use Luffy much.
I don't know. I never watched My Little Pony past season 1. Did they do a date rape scene?
It's not funny, but it is.
Maybe in some specials.
So that was reserved for Equestria girls.
Some of the Disney characters did engage in some pretty unwholesome behavior.
Yes.
And I could see, let's say, Gaston, for example, probably would have done something like that if he could.
Actually,
raise your hand if you don't believe Gaston did.
Yeah, it's obnoxious. Yeah.
Well,
another one.
While Sleeping Beauty was going through the forest, wasn't that prince thinking of the little nasty while he was chasing her? I swear to God, that was.
They met once, and she never got his name, and she just ran away from him. So it was a definite no.
Oh no! What's this?
That one is a good one that reminds me a little bit about how that story goes. If any of y'all have seen it, I saw it under similar circumstances.
Don't remember that one. Although that's on Hen's Tooth video, so that must be a little naughtier.
It is creepy. If you want to see one and you don't have a prejudice against Nostalgia Critic, he actually does cover this one, which reminded me of it because I had seen it a long time ago. But it is a weird and creepy version of Jack and the Beanstalk in many ways. Still a children's film, much like Unico, but just has dark overtones.
Like watching The Black Cauldron. Kind of different from everything else we've seen, like from The Little Mermaid.
Well, that was one of Disney's first. Just like, I'm not sure if one of the darker animations that I remember was The Secret of the Nim.
Secret of Nim? Yeah, that was dark as hell. You better believe it. Yeah, with death and destruction and family breakups and certain death at every turn.
Booth loved his dark films, and he loved his sexual endo, too.
Blue's animations were very dark.
Yeah.
Very dark.
I mean, American Tail was dark.
Yeah.
Which is funny that you bring that up, because once we get to the final bad guy, what the bad guy turns into, I swear it's like if you took the spirit of the dude from The Haunting, the remake, and then You mixed it with the mouse of mixed. That's what you kind of get in the final ending. But when I read about what the hell it was, I didn't think that. But we'll get there.
Yeah.
So, Jake, you were starting to mention the drunken berries. So let's go there. So she gets a little tipsy off of one berry. That's pretty much it. One berry, because you don't see her take any other berries. It's just the one, and then she just starts.
I think drugs are drunk.
I think she gets a little more than tipsy.
No.
But yeah.
Yeah, it's a little bit more than tipsy. More like, I will do whatever you want to me. Just
mind control is best.
You know what he really wanted at the end of it all.
I wasn't really sure what he really wanted.
He wanted to kill her, so he could have a ghost that he could have his way with.
Okay, there, that makes sense.
To me, it's kind of like the story. It's kind of like the story of the devil who needs a soul, but if he doesn't get his soul, then he must go back to hell or something like that. And if I remember correctly, the Mephisto waltz is kind of similar to that. So I think that's kind of what this is. It's the devil. The devil it plays his music to his bride to be, and she is not having anything of it, and so he's got to go back to hell. So,
I mean, shoot, like I said, they go out and straight out impale the guy when Unico comes to play.
Yeah.
Well, I actually did not see who the hell did that. Because to me, I think Unico. Well, let's get to that. So we're getting ahead of ourselves.
Impaled in the kids show. How about that?
Because here's what I saw. Unico impaled him with his horn. He went, "Ow," and then he just kind of flung himself down. That's what I saw.
Yeah.
So.
And then he went, ah!
It was kind of a weak-ass dispatching of the villain until you realize, wait a minute, no, he's not really gone yet.
Dead yet.
Exactly. Although, like Brandon said, definitely a low-bearing boss.
He's
very
not dead. He's nearly dead.
And the wind does go back and bring the baby Beal back to
Well, regardless, Unico, even though he's distracted by the monkey, he's distracted by the monkey. He stays back to help the monkey, but eventually he follows the trail of where Katie has been led, I guess, and he goes into the castle, and he basically is not helped by Katie at all because she is still drunk with love.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, she is completely under his spell. I mean, he basically, I was like, are they really going to do this? Okay, so basically, he drills his horn into a wall, and basically he drills a hole underneath the castle or something like that, and up and under, whatever. He's dragging her ass through. I'm like, that's a lot for that little ass unicorn to do. I feel sorry for you.
That was fast too. I mean,
it's like
he can run really fast. He can glow in the dark.
I was thinking I would not want to drag my drunken pussy anywhere that I wanted.
His horn is a Swiss Army knife of anime. All right.
But in any case, they get up out of that, and that's okay. At about this moment, Unico goes and tries to fight the Baron de Ghost. And he literally is defeated, and basically Katie is kidnapped once again. At this moment, he like as his eyes close, he basically calls out to the West Wind and and his buddy Beasley, which has already been somewhat like back at his island for quite some time, without his newly found friend. And that's when the West Wind just so happens to be passing by the island. And Beasley is like, "Hey, come here, you!" And then she's like, "Oh, I really must go get Unico." "Well, take me with you." And so she basically takes him with him, and they somehow she plops him right where Unico is, because they find where he is, and he basically wakes up and says, "Beasley," and then he's like, "Katie, where are you?" He's like, "I haven't even been here 5 minutes, and all you can talk about is this Katie creature. What the hell?" So, what do y'all think about this whole thing? Do you think this is kind of going fast at this moment?
Not really, because this has one glaring issue. I thought that Unico was supposed to be Swiss cheese when she got re-plopped down every time she got re-plopped. But now she remembers this, the Beelzebub demon. So, we have unremembered what we're supposed to remember, that we're supposed to forget about everyone that we before him, but now we get to re-engage with the same person that we forgot about.
You see, the difference here is that they had to like quickly escape the Night Wind, so she never really took the time to erase his memory that time.
See, yeah, that is where the Night Wind has come in. Because meanwhile, they've sent the Night Wind after him, and at the time that she picks up Beasley, that's when the night wind comes upon them, and then she reminds me of kind of like a spider, in a way, because they get trapped inside of her web, and but then Beasley sees the light at the end of the tunnel, and he's like, "Fly for it, damn it!" And so they do, and they get out of it, and the Night Winds, damn, they're out of my zone. I can't go into the light. A light of day or some shit like that. The way she said it was a little bit better. I liked how sexy her voice was. But in any case, moving on. So they find where Unico is. Unico wakes up. He goes and okay. So he goes and finds Katie. She's all chained up at the top of the tower, and shortly to the right is our Baron the Ghost. Hey, Roger, you were going to say something?
No, I'm kind of curious. Why did I never really understood why that the girl had to be tied up to a minaret.
He was going to get her struck by lightning.
Yes. What purpose? Here, I got her right here. Here she is. Here, come get her.
Faster way to the soul. Anyways,
yeah, I guess.
Unico shows the ability that he doesn't need his full form in order to fight. He does it a couple of times where he actually does hold his own in battle in his teeny form. When he actually does, he takes on the guy himself, just like without the big unicorn form. He does He looked pretty decent for what he was doing.
Yeah, it did, because he did take him on once, and that's when he did that puny fall and piked himself. That's basically what happened. He basically went like.
After being knocked over by Unico, he impales himself on a rat.
I thought that maybe like the West Wind did something or something like that, but no, not Unico, nor Beasley nor Beasley were anywhere near him when he fell. So
Seriously fell over.
Yep.
Because stumbled over and fall over.
Okay, I guess I'll take the fall, guys. Oh, okay, But in any case,
I think the more logical way to say this to say it, and then was able to finish the job. So yeah.
Well, I think whatever was possessing him decided to say, "Fuck this shit! I'm just going to do it myself." So this, and this is what they call this thing. They call this thing a cow skeleton, a demonic cow skeleton monster.
Really?
Yeah, that's what they call. That's what they call this thing. And that's what it transforms into. I didn't see that. I mean, I saw this dude that looks like
like a Baron from manga.
Big hulking thing that came out of Lord of the Rings. So.
For 1970s, because this is 1978, is when the film was basically made. For animation of that quality, though, for end boss in that time, really nice. I mean, it's on par with Rankin Bass animation at that time.
I agree.
Really good at the time. Yes.
The Hobbit and the Return of the King, which I thought were two big, cartoons at that time for my childhood.
And Wizards.
And those were Rankin Bass. So, I mean, saying those were both Rankin Bass films. So, I mean, that had that fear.
Oh, yeah. I love that about this. That's why, see, when it comes to the character of Beazle, I always thought that Beazle was in, like, Magic Island, but now that I know that they're separate, now I know. It's like I saw bits and pieces of the first one, and I think it's the second one that I happened to rewatch over and over again. So, but I'm glad that I saw this because I was not remembering some of it. So
it's the harder one to remember of the two.
We get this final battle scene where he like brings up this like big axe. I mean, that is fucking humongous axe. That is huge. And Unico ends up going into his whole like unicorn form and basically punches a hole through his chest, and the dude just basically falls forward into the fires, and it's like, it's fucking awesome.
He beats Unico at first, breaks his horn, and part of the whole idea of the friendship is that Beazle sacrifices the horn that he had in order to save Unico, which gives him the power to transform.
Well, yeah, and Katie also offers up her human
power of loving friendship.
I promise you to give your horn back, and here's your horn.
And I'll give my human ship back just to have you back. So he gives that power of love, that power of power.
Well, I will actually give it one thing. They did not do what is now a trope, which is the tears heal moment that they had.
She cried enough over
him. She did cheer up over him, and they did cry for she did cry for quite a little bit, and his eyes opened after that. So they.
But it was explained he was healed through a different means. So.
But in any case, then Unico then yelled, "I have the power of Grayskull," and went after that demon. But in any case, no, that did not happen. But in any case, he basically shoots a hole through his chest. Demon falls into the fire. Fire burns up, and basically, and then Katie is back with the old lady, and of course, now that this everyone is all happy again, the gods are now well aware of this, and so the West Wind has to whisk him away again.
Oh, again.
So
and on to the second film. That's exactly what was the next. straight into the next film.
Correct.
She's like, you're not gonna like this other one. Just
So this next film is directed by Moribi Murano. He's often credited as like Mami Sugino or something like that. But he's the one who directed the second movie, and it's called Unico in the Island of Magic. And let's do a slow close-up of this so that people can see this real quick. Okay. So Unico in the Island of Magic, which was filmed in 1983. Once again,
Go ahead again, Dave.
Yeah.
Oh, here.
There you
Unico
go.
in the Island of Magic.
Okay.
Of course, that title cover, you see Kuruku and playing with his toys, and Unico going towards him. So, in any case,
secondary name for this, in my opinion, would be "and the lesser budget."
But ultimately, the one that's more memorable to me, to be honest. So, we have the same West Wind that has ferreted Unico away, and she basically drops him off in where does she drop him off? Oh, yes, right.
Heathcliff ripoff.
Yes, I was thinking that too. I mean, that is a Heathcliff ripoff, if anything. Except he's got some beat box ears, and
actually, I like that the concept that they have for the things later.
I believe, if I remember correctly,
for a tweeter.
Yeah.
Well, yes, this was the Heathcliff ripoff, definitely, and he called himself Melvin the Magnificent.
He was a little Heathcliffy, yeah.
Not as nice as Heathcliff.
No.
Not just a little bit. He was Heathcliff. What are you talking about?
And then this is the character that originally was voiced.
Obviously, you haven't seen Heathcliff recently.
Yeah.
So I'm going to go around the room before we go into the plot and see who saw this first and who didn't, and whatnot. So let's start with you, Brandon. I went with you last time. I'm going to go with you first.
Not much different from as far as the story from the last one, really, because I watched them back to back. But this is the one that stuck in my memory. There are only a few parts of the first one that I remember a lot. Actually, no, there's not a few parts. There was only one that I remembered from my childhood, the first movie, and that was The Night Wind. There was a lot more I remembered from this one. And because this one freaked me out as a little kid. Because this one was downright creepy, and it kept that creepy tone. And as an adult, I was watching it for the first time and watching it. I've watched it twice now. And I have to say, it holds up remarkably well. I think that even out of the two films, this one actually has an inherent strength that could actually keep it going through a lot of the more modern, like some of the Ghibli stuff that's been out today that's more child-centric. A lot of that level of imagination to me. Because the graveyard of toys that they come up with later on there, the whole living doll thing, oh my God, that was just...
further Rudolph comparison, I kept thinking the Island of Misfit Toys, but like the nightmare version.
The square wheel.
I thought it also had much better writing to it.
Well, there was a voice that reminded me of the Charlie in the Box somewhere in here.
I got a different feel from a different movie with toys that was creepy and in the same era. And that would be the Raggedy Ann and Andy movie.
I was thinking that too.
That was
a lot of the characters looked similar.
Yes.
No.
Like that
Were
candy
they-
creature thing that attacked them and something like
Kinda
that.
I
thing.
was
Worked
wondering if some of the animators probably worked on it similarly, as well as some early Ghibli staff, because Ghibli wasn't created at the time this movie was made. So I kind of feel, at least with the parental figures, it kind of gave me that feel of the early Ghibli artwork.
Yeah.
So I mean, it definitely has a weirder tone, but yeah, I got a lot of Raggedy Ann and Andy feel from this movie, and I think that's probably where I blended those two films for in the past.
There's one other film that reminded me of the mood where this went, and that would be the claymation version of Hansel and Gretel.
You have to go there again?
Yep.
Never seen that story. Always comes back ruining my life.
That was fucking dark and creepy. So to me, that also the claymation version of the what is that?
Adventures of Tom Sawyer.
No. There's the something of Hamlin.
Ah, the Pied Piper.
The Pied Piper of Hamlin. Yes. There are some older Pied Piper of Hamlin claymation efforts that remind me of the mood of where this goes. So to me, this was like in the to me, I always seem to like the darker films, and this one went dark. So let's go with you, Embry Arts. Why don't you tell us? Was this the first time watch for you?
It was not the first time. It's the first time I really sat down and tried to pay attention more to it. I don't remember it too much from my childhood as scary and creepy. I just remember it as being a weird, tripped up movie. But then I didn't get creeped out in Raggedy Ann and Andy, which was a horror film fest in itself. Not to add in the concept that Annabelle, the real life creepy doll, is based off of Raggedy Ann.
No way! I didn't know that.
She was a Raggedy Ann doll. So if you ever look at the real Annabelle, she's a Raggedy Ann doll.
I guess I'm gonna have to watch the movie now.
Yeah.
Yeah, the look of the doll is a lot more creepier than it really was. So just like Robert the doll, though he's real and whatnot, he's a little bit more cuter than you might actually think.
Robert's still a little creepy.
Yeah, true. If you actually look at him from the museum perspective, but
well, if we ever do for Inside Movies Galore, if we ever do that topic of unintentionally creepy films, Raggedy Ann and Andy could definitely have gone there. Adventures of Tom Sawyer, many of those. Oh, said the White Rabbit.
Said the White Rabbit. Yes,
I have that one.
Though I have to wonder if that was unintentionally creepy.
In any case, we get him set down in this forest of creatures that is supposedly run by this kingpin of cats. By Melvin the Magnificent, who just so happens to be scared of Unico, at least at first, and then suddenly in the forest there is this flute music that they hear, and so all the animals have to go and gather and see exactly what this music is. And of course, Melvin the Magnificent, because he's king of this forest, has to go and try to tell him to knock it the fuck off or shut up. This is my forest, kind of a thing. But not before he basically roughhouses Unico just a little bit. What do y'all think about Melvin?
Well, real quick, back up just to quick. Did we finish first impression? Well, I know we didn't finish first impressions, but who else still needs to give them?
Let's do that. Roger, what is your first impression of this film? Was this a first time watch for you?
Yes, this is the first time watching Unico and the land of the Magic Island or whatever it was called, the Magic Land or Magic Island. Yeah, I was pleased that it was very dark. I like the cute stuff that is really dark. So yeah, I had a very favorable outlook to it. I like the character designs. Yeah, I think this is the redeeming quality of watching these two films back to back. You can see how well the other one is done with all the puffiness and all that nice stuff, and this one's deep and dark and dingy and evil and nice, and I loved it. Yeah, it's great.
Okay.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Kids.
Go ahead.
It's not.
Let's go over to you, Jake. Why don't you? Was this a first time watch for you?
Yeah, this was also a first time watch.
Okay.
I have not seen this prior. And a lot of I will say the other one got pretty dark at the end, but otherwise was pretty light and frothy. This one had its light and frothy moments, but it was more consistent in tone overall, I think. And it still had some inconsistencies. And then one glaring one for me in the English dub. But in the Japanese dub, Cherry is played by Sumi Shimamoto, who I know typically as having a very mature voice. So it's probably not much different in the Japanese. But in the English, this little girl, I get the impression she's a little girl, sounds like she's in her 20s.
She is in her 20s. She is in her 20s around that time.
Sounds like it. And it just was kind of weird. It was like a little bit off-putting. Now, I look here. Apparently, the girl that plays the Sphinx's daughter, Laura Cody, apparently has a ton of anime credits, which is kind of cool. Some good stuff there. And again, I love the anytime I get to see, I want to see this in the Japanese because, I mean, my favorite show of all time is Maison Ikkoku, and of course the main character, Kyoko, is played by Sumi Shimamoto. Ichiro Nagai is very popular in the Takahashi universe as well, so it was nice seeing them, on the cast and him playing the cat. I want to see that. Like the English version, the cat is Michael Sorch.
Most of the cast in the English cast, other Barbara Goodson and one other guy, Jan Robinson, are the only main professionals that have gone on and done long things. Robinson is of two notable roles. He was, what is it? I wrote it down here.
They've got an extensive
list. He's Tetsuo and Akira. So he is the voice of Tetsuo and Akira. And he is the pinnacle voice of Larry Laffer from the Leisure Suit Larry series.
He's got a few, but I'm looking here, and this says Michael Sorge has a much longer cast list on ANN.
But he's very obscure roles. That's the problem. His roles were here, there, nothing big. The two big ones were Jan and of course Barbara. Right, but I did like the dude that played the cat. He was kind of amusing, and his two little what am I trying to say? Sidekicks. He absolutely was pulling out Heathcliff. I mean, it was. If you've seen Heathcliff at all, that is Heathcliff's voice.
Yes.
I saw Heathcliff as a kid. It has been so long.
He has that Brooklyn accent.
Good time.
The Heathcliff wasn't necessarily. He was a tough cat, but he wasn't necessarily as much of a coward as this guy is.
No, he was not a coward.
No, he was more of a Garfield-like cat. So,
which Garfield ripped off of Heathcliff.
Yep.
Right. Yeah, apparently one of his lackeys in the English dub is voiced by the dude that played our date rapist in the first movie.
I don't know what happened to him now.
And the other one is played by Jan Rabson as well. So he played the lackey 1 and Karuku. But yeah, it's an interesting dichotomy there. But yeah, I mean, overall, I think it's a fun follow-up. It is kind of creepy. I could see how kids might be scarred, but as an adult, it's interesting.
Well, in any case, this as the forest creatures are being attracted to this music, we are led to a cloaked figure in like black or blue, who is perched like on top of either a mountain or a tree, and he's just playing this flute. And it appears to attract all the animals, and that's when we have Melvin the Magnificent go and say, "Knock it off." And that's when he pops off his two sidekicks and turns them into stone, kind of like a Medusa kind of a moment, you know. This is where it gets serious, you know. And he's like, and that's when he gets chased down.
Crazy hair.
He's a beachy character. Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
He's a surfer dude. He's a surfer dude in disguise. Anyways, hey, just think if he had a voice like this. I mean, so totally, you know. But in any case, so he chases Heathcliff down. Let's just say it's Heathcliff, and he's like. And then he offers him his beatbox thing. That's the fucking like hilarious moment. I mean, he's like, "You got the tweeter here, and you got the woofer here, and then you put him like this, and then it's like you can dance around and shit, you know."
So we have this movie to blame for Twitter.
Yes,
but in any case, he basically becomes like. His like main, his main hoodlum, so to speak, and he basically magically makes the trunk of a tree into a rocket ship, and okay, this is where Star Wars get. This is where I think they kind of took this from Star Wars a little bit. Where he went on the trunk thing with the Star Troopers, of course.
Oh, absolutely. He was a skater.
And he basically tells Melvin that he's supposed to turn all the animals of the forest into these live puppets for his master. Yeah. But and then of course his master comes out and is like, "Toby, are you lollygagging around?" And he's like, "No, master. It's just a little bit harder than it looks." Because this is after he's tried to go after some squirrels, some rabbits, and including Unico, which kind of defeats the purpose because they're all faster than him. And what do we think about the first? What do we think about Toby as a character?
Well, I do like that Melvin had a little, if I remember correctly, Melvin got a little dig at him. It was something like it would help if you could aim straight or something like that. He's not very good with aiming with his.
I mean, Toby is kind of a cool looking antagonist as the way that they drew him. But I also like some of the magical effects they did, like that log bike that he did. And like I said, that kind of reminded me of a Ghibli type imagination effect. But I did like that. I thought that was rather cool, how it had like the light built in, that kind of like the headlight he's on as he's going through trying to take out the animals.
Mm-hmm.
Though nowhere near as creepy as his boss.
Well, and this is where we get exactly kind of what he's trying to do, because he's basically asking him, "Did you make my spaceship to work yet?" Because that's what he's trying to build. He's trying to build a spaceship to get off this fucking place, And and this is where he also tells him what he fully wants him to do, because he knows the first part, which is turn all the animals into these puppet things. Well, why don't you go and finish off the people too? Because they're useless anyways.
Right.
So it's like, yes, master. But then afterwards, he's like, this wasn't part of the deal.
Yeah.
Because lo and behold, in the village down below is his own family. And apparently, he had left to become a better person or whatnot. And that's kind of what we realize, that he's a little bit more human than we think. So. Especially when he shows up at that family's door, and that just so happens to be where Unico ended up as he drifted off downstream.
Mm-hmm.
So, what do we think about Unico in this particular film as a character?
Well, I guess he took care of the bad guy at the end.
I was gonna say, at this part, he just gets the crap beat out of him essentially, and and he's basically getting the crap beaten out of him, and he's running and hiding. That's about all.
Well, and he gets left. He gets left behind. He gets, it's like everybody treats him like crap, and then of course he comes back and saves the day.
Well, Unico has to have somebody. He has to have somebody that he wants to defend. He has to have somebody that loves him and that he loves, which he didn't have any of that when he started that. He wasn't going to be out there defending that cat.
No.
No.
Yeah.
That cat was mean to him. Very mean. And since his memory was wiped this time, I think he was probably starting a little different than before, because before he was all happy and cheerful and happy-go-lucky and whatever.
They Men in Blacked him.
Real quick thought before we get too far afield from Toby, though. Did anyone else get this vibe at all of him is like, I can't keep the brothers straight. Which one was Ameboshi and which one was Tsuboshi? But the brother that played the flute in Fushigi Yugi, they don't get the vibe that Toby might have been sort of an inspiration for that character. I don't know. I was kind of thinking that might have been the case.
It's a common Japanese character.
Myth
and legends. So I mean, they kind of went with it, but it also fits in with the Pied Piper. Other legends. So I mean, it's not really there to say.
With the original.
It's copied from one to the other. I mean, it's definitely not the concept that we get with Mel and Heathcliff here. That we.
Well, you don't think Heathcliff is a common figure in Japanese folklore?
Well, I think cats are, but I think that particular design and that particular, at least the English vocals,
right?
That was a straight copy, and that was definitively a screen rape of American culture for you.
I mean, if you look at it, a lot of anime is inspired by original Disney cartoon art, and if you take it from that, it would not surprise me if they were inspired by other older forms. And Heathcliff was an old form.
No, Heathcliff came out in 1973. Unico came out at the same time as a manga, and this would have been a creation of Tezuka. Tezuka would actually, there we go, Heathcliff. The Tezuka, though, would probably more than likely use Tom of Tom and Jerry as an example.
Right.
To create his cats. And because that is one of the things he does credit to. He credited Bambi and he credited Tom and Jerry as being his inspirations towards his creations as a child.
Yeah, IMDb lists 1980 as the release date of the first Heathcliff series, if I read that correctly.
The comic came out in 1973.
Okay.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. I'm not particularly familiar with that one. Yeah, I have to admit, I was more of a Garfield. I was more of a Garfield.
Unico started in 1976. There is a 3-year gap.
Yeah, well, I watched Heathcliff before I watched Garfield and Friends. So I specifically remembered when I was a kid saying, "Oh, that's Heathcliff," in this cartoon. So I immediately associated it with Heathcliff.
So there's some early kind of Disney-ish inspired animation, maybe a little bit. Actually, I guess it could have been because of that. Yeah,
that's another one that's of that same era. Yeah,
but much more disturbing.
Yes, very, very much disturbing.
Because that's pre-Astro Boy era right there. That's World War II. Which,
well, I mean, if you go into Tezuka's work, one of my favorite pieces of Tezuka, and he actually did an animation. It's called Jumping. If you look it up on YouTube, it is an animation. It is simply hand-drawn, pane by pane by pane, for about 11 minutes of a girl jumping higher and higher and higher, and eventually gets to where she dies, goes to hell, gets flipped back up, and repeats the whole process.
Sounds fun.
It's disturbing, but it is a Tezuka animation.
Well,
isn't that similar to Hell and Back?
Probably, but it probably predates it.
Yep.
Tezuka is one of the true masters of anime and creators of anime, godfathers of all.
Well, he's credited as the father of manga, even though manga existed before he started.
Well, modern manga, I guess you could say.
Yeah, he's the father of what is modern manga these days.
He's the one that's known as the god of manga, and he kind of revolutionized how manga is perspectively drawn at their readers. You know, you had motion, you had storylines, or not. They were just necessarily all fluffy good. He definitely delved into many different works, from very lighthearted to very dark and everything in between. I think it's voluminous. I don't think anybody in the manga world has ever reached what he had released in his lifetime. So yeah, he later on went on to create Mushi Studios, where he started making the Tesla Atom and the Leo line and the Kimba and all the other stuff.
So did anyone else get the assumption that Karuku is just Glenda on a bad day?
Yeah, he had a very bad day.
Glenda the good witch on a bad day when she wakes up on the wrong side of the bed.
Yeah.
This is
one bad day.
That particular character, one had a very excellent introduction. I love how they used the darkness to contrast with the different lighting effects. And how he came in there, that can actually amplify the fear, especially as a child, that you would see on his approach. And then the way that they use the design, the kind of the marionette, the actual marionette style design, as you find out later. He is in a way, a lot of ways, you could say he is a twisted version of Pinocchio that had been fully corrupted.
Well, his name means puppet, so I mean.
And you do have to wonder if the whole idea of the Mystery Island and all this, and the puppets, the people being turned into puppets and whatnot, if that wasn't a nod to Pinocchio. I mean, that it very well could have been a big influence.
Pinocchio was an old enough story that he could have seen that one. But
it also
acknowledged 90 times to have watched Bambi, I'm sure he probably fit Pinocchio in there somewhere.
Yeah.
He was probably a Disney fan at one point or another, yes.
Mhm.
Because like thinking Pinocchio, all the kids that are posting free stuff, they're taken to this whatever island and turned into donkeys.
Pinocchio was a really dark film too. At one
Yeah.
Not as dark as the real tale, though.
Yeah.
Well,
Especially if you get into the cut stuff from Disney.
oh, yeah. Talk about some of the many banned cartoons. But in any case, so moving on, we get Karuku to command him to go and like turn all the people into like basically puppets for his spaceship.
Whatever project is. Yeah.
So he goes down ahead of time, goes visits his family, and shows them all the stuff that he's learned. I mean, he's proud of this shit, you know. So he goes to his little sister, whose name is Sherry.
You can't glaze past one of my favorite visual touches in either film, where he's trying to impress his father and he makes his head sprout a whole bunch of flowers, and then he just brushes them off, but he still has the one flower coming out of his nose, and even when he gets turned into a puppet, the flower is still in his nose.
Well, and the flowers come up later when he actually has the wizard's duel with him, you know. And that's something that seems to happen in every single magician movie that spans from like the 1930s to on forward. Any apprentice to a wizard, you'll often see a wizard's duel happen. I mean, it happened in The Sword and the Stone. It happened in the Vincent Price The Raven. I think. There was this Vincent Price. There was a Vincent Price
Lord
movie.
of the Rings books. I mean,
And Excalibur as well.
Well, it's a part of the whole thing. I mean, they got to duel each other at some point. It's just how it is, you know.
Yeah, that's definitely a big part of the Harry Potter series. I mean, that's,
but you get to that. One of the good things about it is, of course, the family thing shows the issues that have come between him and Toby and his family, and that he really wanted to do something to impress. And you also saw how much he did care for his sister, actually protecting her, because he knew he couldn't protect his father and mother, but he knew he could protect her at least.
And it wasn't just one time; it was multiple times.
Yeah.
Because this was the first time that we see him protecting her, and then he protected her against Karuku, and then he again protected her later on. But you could definitely see that there is a love bond between those two. And I actually feel for Toby, because I really think that after all this learning of magic and whatnot, he thought that he had become something. You know, he thought he had something to show his parents. I mean, I get the feeling that he came from poverty, and he wanted to. You know, he wanted to really provide for his family what they probably couldn't afford. You know, and now that he somewhat could, his family was rejecting him. So
he's of the trope of the classic gangster storyline that goes through film history. That you have someone who wants to do something good for their family, do something right, so they turn to a life of crime. Destroys themselves, but they think they're on the good side, and ultimately it destroys everything they want.
There's definitely a noir side to the story, which is kind of interesting. Magic and crime put together. You know?
But answer the comments that we have on the side. Yes, I agree. Shoot, all the effects in the movie were better than a troll in Central Park. I agree with all of that.
Well, and then that's when Karuku shows up, because he's like he's an impatient wizard. You can tell that he is. It's like he can only keep Toby so far from his magical reach, you know. It's like, here, I'll let you have this amount of leash, but once I see that like you're not doing anything, okay, Toby, where are you? Come hither.
He gets bored.
Yeah, he gets bored, and I think he
entertaining himself.
Well, and later we find out that it's loneliness, So, but we're getting ahead of ourselves before we get to that point. This is where he basically just appears and is like, "Ooh, humans! Killer! I can turn them into puppets." Okay, and he's like, "No, can't you just spare these? No, these are gonna be perfect. Zoom, zoom." Okay, and that's where you get the whole flower out of his pipe mouth thing, and he's like, "Are there any other humans in the house?" And he's like, "No,
no humans here."
And he's like, "Good. Now carry on with the rest of these people. I want my whatever. Be off with you." So, what do you think about that moment? That he goes out and like on his magical Starship Trooper bike and it starts turning people into these stone things.
Well, the stoning of the various people in the whole city or the town was the actual creepy part, and then they start, and of course the march of the into the art thing. Really, that's pretty much like kind of like separates itself from a normal cartoon. Cartoons don't have this kind of darkness to it, where the family is all these families are stoned, and then they're made to create some sort of fortress or some sort of ship. So yeah, I like that. This is definitely the part that was was the most interesting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that march of the puppets was a very that thing stuck with me a lot as a child.
There was one thing that ran through my head when I watched this again, and I saw the puppets, and it was one character. The fact the puppets reminded me of one character, and I think that character probably was a ripoff of these puppets now. Jelly Jiggler from Boba.
That's what I was thinking you were going to
say. I mean, flat out, this square nose face look. I mean, it was what they looked like.
That and the blockheads from Gumby. I mean, but in any case, but you get this march of the puppets where you see these, where you see these towers of.
Yep.
Yeah, there it goes. Right there, in the far corner there, that little guy right there.
Now this is a show that's not entirely for kids.
That's a show not entirely for one.
Yeah,
not entirely for the same.
Use copious quantities of drugs before watching.
Oh God!
There are points in this film that I think you need to be on copious amounts of drugs to make.
So while Toby is turning all the people to stone puppets,
they're getting stoned.
While they're getting stoned,
yeah, that's about it.
The Unico and Sherry actually end up going after Toby, and they end up at the Castle of Live Puppets, which is basically what this is. And they, I guess, start to annoy Karuku, and that's when Tobias steps in and says, "Hey, wait a moment! Don't like chits them. Why don't we just turn them into toys?" And he's like, "I don't care. Just do something. Get rid of them." And so he does. turning them into toys, and that's when we get a private moment, Karuku, that I guess not even Toby was supposed to see, because little do we know, he comes and plays with some toys every so often. It's like a little moment of playing with dolls.
Sure, I didn't see you playing with your toys again.
No, sir. I didn't see you playing with your dolls again.
When he was watching.
But Toby, weren't you supposed to be doing something? And he's like, yes, sir. Yes, master.
Yes. Well, that's where you get to actually see them building the castle out of the dolls. You get to see where the living dolls were there.
Well, and because of all these colors and whatnot that were flying through, that also that brings me back to the moment in the previous film that reminded me of the moment of the conductor from the Phantom Tollbooth. So to me, when it reminded me of that.
You brought up Raggedy Ann and Andy.
Yep.
That dragon toy thing that they had
flat
reminded
out
me a lot of that.
Yeah, flat out similar. I swear that same dragon was in there, and that's why I think they may have had some of the same animation stuff on both of those films, because they came out right around the same time as each other. So it could be that they borrowed from one film to the other elements for that. So who knows?
Yeah, I have to admit, I like that little dragon creature for some reason. That every time it went, it just kind of reminded me of some other animated creature that was like a duck or something like that at one point. That just went, but.
Are you talking about the toy in Nightmare Before Christmas?
Yeah.
Yeah.
There we go. That's the one. Yeah. That creature the vampire duck. That's what it reminded me of. Except with Karuko's voice. So I mean, whoever did Karuko did the voice there. So at least I think so. And then. Of course, Karuko. I think Karuko is like is almost like the main character in here from here on forward, because he's the one that has dynamic things that we see. We get to see a mythos, a backstory of him, because once. Let's go backwards. Rewind.
We kind of left the character off.
Toby came back and turned them back and dropped them off somewhere, and I believe they were told that the only person who could probably tell you anything is the Sphinx.
Yeah.
So
that's after they go to the demons.
Yeah, they go to the. Oh yeah, that's right. So.
Apparently, they find out that the demons were what they were going to go attack next. So they decide to go and try and when Toby brings them and drops them off to say, okay, you guys stay here, be good, hide. They say he's going to go attack the demons next.
He takes out and gets their parents stoned as fuck. So they all the babies are left.
Whiny little demons.
Hell yeah! I mean, those were annoying.
They reminded me of the emotion book characters like Mr. Happy, Miss Sad, and all that.
I think I know what you're talking about.
Oh God,
old school.
Oh God,
old school books. That was before 70s. And they had that same sort of look to them.
That was before the Small World characters.
Well, the mostly inappropriate one today, Mr. Tickles.
Oh God, Miss Chatterbox and all that jazz.
Oh yeah.
Oh God, those were books my sister had. Those were annoying. Anyways, but I wouldn't have known Ralph S. Mouse if not for my sister. So, but in any case, moving on. So, yeah, they heard about the Valley of the Demons is where Toby was going to go turn to stone next, and so they followed him, and that's when they come across the baby demons in the dark, and that's when Unico shows his horn light to Sherry. She was like, I didn't know you could do that. And they basically tell them, well, we heard that the Spanx could tell you anything. And so they travel to the Spanx, and they find this little ass demon, which I forget what her name is.
She wasn't very memorable to me as a character. She kind of was just there, mouthed off at him for a little bit, and then
it was literally just there. I don't think the Spanx really had any real play other than to say, oh, well, your information that you're seeking isn't here, it's here.
And so let me go with you.
Well, and she was like, well,
really so.
and she was like, my mother's the Spanx, and she's on vacation, and yeah. Well, I heard that the Trojan horse actually knows like just as much as my mother. So, but I don't suggest for you to go there. And that's when they walk off, and she's like, hey, wait a minute. To the ends of the earth. And so that's where Sherry decides to abandon Unico, and he's like, wait, and he's like, she doesn't love me anymore. And that's when that little demon creature is like, no, you doofus. She loves you, and that's why she's leaving you. And then he's like, oh yeah, she really does love me. Unicorn.
Yep, he turns into the Pegasus unicorn, and they fly to the island of Misfits Toys.
Yep, basically.
What they called it.
You're not such a misfit. No, just but in any case, they get there, and for some reason, we get a moment where you get all these voices from all these piles of junk. And at first, I'm thinking, wait, are we watching Casper? Because the original Casper, before the ghosts came out, you heard voices. So to me, I'm thinking, well, this must be a Casper moment.
Well, you could tell how much hatred the toys had for the humans just coming in there. You could feel that because of in their voices, because of what they were saying. It came out like right away.
Because they were all saying like, human, it's a human, it's human. And that's when the little demon, I like this part. She was like, shut up already. Quit your bantering or some shit like that. And that's. And it was just kind of funny because Sherry was just sitting down, and she was like, "I wish we could find the Trojan horse." Oh, you mean me? And I was like, "Wait a minute." That almost sounded like the Gump from Return to Oz, or I was thinking like Santa Claus's voice or some shit. I don't know, but
I do like the design of the ends of the earth. I like that much better than the Misfit Toy Island.
Well, Misfit Toy Island was crap.
But I did think it was just a really cool, creepy design. I loved the concept of it, and I love the story that it kind of brings, the background story to the villain that Dave will tell us in a minute.
Oh yeah. The Trojan horse basically they dusted off, and he looks like brand fucking new, and he basically, here, come look into my eye. I'll show you exactly what happened to her. And he basically says that basically he was a puppet at one point in time, a marionette. And his strings became rabbled for one moment, and his humans decided to discard him. He found his way to the ends of the earth, and I guess where he
get my Schwartz twisted.
Where he ended up was in the only spot of light that appeared to be anywhere in the ends of the earth, and I guess for like 200, 300 years of being in that light, I guess it brought him to life.
Mm-hmm.
But unfortunately, he'd been there so long and forgotten so long that he already hated humans. So.
And keep in mind, like one of the things that it was kind of a passing thing, but that his owners were magicians,
mm-hmm.
which ties into why he was able to cast the magic, because he'd observed it the entire time. He was able to learn that. So when he became to life, he had like a whole set of magic that he could use to take his revenge.
Well, and I think the reason why the animators decided to give us this story is to try to give us a humanized story to Kuriku, instead of having them be all this darkly like okay, let's do evil shit, let's bring it on, man, this whole oh, it's so fun, let's do it, kind of energy, And he, at first, he is kind of entertaining because he seems to find things entertaining that we would probably never find entertaining. So, but I think he's kind of an interesting character because it brings to Unico the reason why his powers are there, to bring happiness to anyone, even the cold-hearted ones. And that's, to me, I like the fact that this is a moralistic tale than anything else. What do y'all think about that?
I thought he was a well-written character, the bad guy. I like that. I like the twist in it. That you really do have hints to it all throughout, but it's really cool to see those hints come together. A lot of the nuances, though, the ending got a little bit too sappy for me with it, but really all the way up until the end, that character was an amazingly written character for a children's film.
Oh yeah,
as far as sympathetic villains are concerned.
I didn't think it really was that sappy. Maybe I don't know. For someone who had never had a friend or anything like that, I mean, it's believable, and it was a believable meltdown. So to me, it was like you were expecting it, but yes, again, it was. It was a lot for him to take all this kindness towards the end, and to me, it's like killing kindness with strangers concept, and it was something to kind of see at the time when I was a kid. I mean, when he had that gash, and then he was melting, and then
what
was like, what do I do? A kind of a thing. And then I kept thinking, okay, wait a minute, he didn't throw water on him. He's he's not the Wicked Witch of the West. So why is he melting?
That fight that they do when they go back there was really well animated and really well done, where you get to see Unico doing his best with those little itty wings going back and forth with his you get to see Toby in the epic magic battle.
Oh yeah.
You get to see the idiot cat and of course Toby's sister. Everybody else basically get puppetized, but it still was a pretty awesome series of action scenes leading up
I
to the
agree.
final battle between them.
I agree.
And the cover that they show is
I like
the final charge.
I like the fact that he made sure that when he was going to strike at him at Toby, that he made sure flowers came out of his hand. That was fucking great. So
okay.
I mean, the action scene. I mean, that's where most of the animation in this film went. Was that final bit?
Oh yeah, that was the budget right there.
There's where the budget went. Where you had the more simple design characters. There wasn't really much paid into character design at points. But I mean, it showed in action towards the end. Now, I mean, we get the typical load-bearing boss ending, where the castle starts crumbling once the villain's defeated.
Okay.
One could say that he got stoned and was just tweaking, but
Did anybody else other than me look at that when they were destroying walls and stuff? Like, you killed like thousands of people.
Yeah, no. I mean, the size of this entire complex, those each, you could see where they put in the backgrounds, each person, and then you're seeing them crumble to pieces. It's like, no, those are people. Those are people. And then when the end, you see them all on an island, and you're like, no, there should be a lot more people there.
It's like that Sailor Green moment when you realize that they were eating people. You know,
because, I mean, he had pretty much come close to finishing his goal, which was to basically make a castle out of every living creature on the planet, and then sit by himself in the planet in solitude for eternity, because with his vengeance achieved.
Yeah.
Which there always seems to be a demon of solitude in each film. And it seems like a going thing that they eventually turn into statues. And to me, I wonder if that's what he was going to eventually become, a gargoyle or some shit like that. Of course, in many Japanese kaiju movies, some of them start out as statues and become monsters. So, even in like the Big Bird movies, you had the one going to Japan or whatnot. That one had statues that came alive.
China, so, but yeah.
Yeah.
I've only seen one Big Bird movie, the Fall of That Bird.
I don't think I ever saw one.
Well, I didn't see a lot of Sesame Street as a kid. I only saw limited amounts.
I saw a lot of the show.
I didn't see a lot of the show.
I even remember Don't Eat the Pictures. So, which was only on VHS. They got lost in the museum at night, and that being said, what do y'all think about this end here? Where of course, it seems like Toby and Sherry and the family all seem to get back together, but we don't really see them, do we?
No, Unico. I mean, at least the last time he got to yell back goodbye. This time he's gone.
Yeah.
I hope y'all enjoyed drowning.
It's like whisked away again without being able to see her. Now, all you get is a whisper of what might have been Sherry. So,
Right.
What do y'all think about that ending? Did y'all like it? Did y'all dislike it?
I mean, it was a bit sappy, but at the same time, it was expected to be sappy. You got to have that saccharine ending. I mean, they always kind of end with the power of love and friendship, and how the bad guy, of course, it's like I said, I think that story was very well written. That the bad guy was fueled by hate, and so when Unico was able to pierce that hatred, when he lost that, he lost the energy he had to sustain him, which because when all he had to sustain was hatred, without the hatred,
I'm sorry,
We're
I
left with
can't control your music here.
What?
but he a lot of that also goes with vengeance and in general is that with vengeance, once your vengeance is complete, all you're left with is emptiness and total satisfaction.
Okay. So now that I think we've kind of wrapped up both of the films pretty much, what do we talk about the production of the first film as opposed to the production of the second film? What do y'all think about
I think the second did that. I think they had more money into the second.
I really felt like the second one looked like the animation was a little cleaner, and that it was, it could have been a stronger. But they both really did look like that early '80s.
See,
animation.
you look like you think like it's the opposite.
It is the opposite. Having animation experience, I can tell you it's the opposite. You can tell with certain things like backgrounds, with the way characters move and draw, and how much detail you put into a character. The characters in the second movie are very simplistic and very easy to just move about, whereas the only ones that really had emotion that they really had to put effort into was Kuroko in the second movie. The first movie, you had more characteristic movement in animation that you find in anime, and that's why I was like, yeah, there's lesser budget in the second film. It shows, and it shows particularly in character design, which is rare to see when with a movie. But with the 70s, it's striking. When you see that 70s, 80s point, it's striking when you see characters that are just one color, that are blobby shaped, that change about. And you really see that. You don't get that from the first movie. You get sort of a clean flow throughout, and you don't get that blobby change.
I hear what you're saying. You're saying as saying me. It's hard for me to tell. This is the first time I think I've actually sat down and watched both of them in syncopation. Probably since the last time I was a kid. I think I think I tried to watch the Island of Magic when I first got this, but I actually don't think I actually sat down and watched it. I was just glad to get it at the time on DVD, and just one thing came into another, and I just haven't been able to sit down and watch them again. Now seeing them, I see what both of y'all are saying. On one hand, I do still love the second film. More than I do the first film, and I remember the second film more than the first film. But seeing it, I see the first one having a little bit more smoothness, and the second one was a little bit more rough around the edges and darker than the first. But I still have my favorite film out of the two.
I mean, just because one doesn't have as much of a budget animation-wise, doesn't necessarily mean that one is better.
It doesn't denote it's better than the film. It's just animation-wise, one is better in my opinion. Plot-wise, two is better.
The only thing as an adult, is I wish they wouldn't have ripped Heathcliff from the comic book pages. For this,
I blame that more on the English dub. I'm sure if I listened to the Japanese version of Heathcliff, because I'm sure there's a Japanese version, that the two characters would not sound alike.
No, but they certainly look alike.
They do look alike, though. Yes.
Jake, if you were sitting next to me, I'd slap you. Anyways.
It's scintillating conversation.
All right. Well, are we ready to do favorites?
Why don't we hit favorites? And if Roger's still with us, he can then select our next month's anime.
Alrighty. Well, did we want to continue with like the music or?
It's all. I have to be at work in less than 6 hours, so
okay. Sounds good. Well,
the
the only thing I wanted to say about the first film is that to me that one was a little bit more musically, more like a musical.
You could tell that the first film was much more geared to the children than the second film.
Okay.
And music definitely plays a part in that.
Oh yeah.
Just had date rape at the end. That's all.
For kids.
Alrighty. Let's go around the room and tell who we are. So why don't we start with you, MB Arts? Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do?
I am a professional cartoonist. I am an artist. I am known for my art through DeviantArt particularly, but also through other sites. I now do live streams on YouTube every Saturday night. So people can watch me do an actual drawing from start to finish. They are requested, so if you want something drawn, put in a request with me, and it'll be on there. Also, check out my art, my comic, particularly demonblade.comic.com. And it is an ongoing series. I'm about to go to the next story arc, but it's going to be a very silly yet dark story coming up in the next chapter, and I hope people will enjoy it.
Alrighty, and if you could just give us one favorite scene from either one of these two films.
I have to give it to Katie's cat song. Because I can't get that out of my head. I'm a cat, meow meow is stuck in my head.
Alrighty, Roger, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself, what you do, and then quickly tell us maybe a favorite scene that you might have had from one or the other of the movie.
Hey, Roger, you still with us? It might be asleep.
Possible.
Okay. Let's go over to Jake.
Okay.
Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do and maybe a favorite scene?
I'm Kotobukijake. I'm the co-host of SeptumSin versus the World, where we're airing this lovely program for you. And we also tonight filmed a continuation on our run-up to our big award show that we're doing, Filmz of 2020, where we talked about the nominees. And
which will probably be up later in the week because I'm not editing it tonight.
Right. And we did the first block of 21 out of 84 films. That should be fun. And I'm a movie fan, collector, anime fan, collector, what have you. And also, when I'm not trying to watch an ungodly amount of stuff, I'm busy trying to start a new business and, well, just generally being sleep deprived. So, it's good times for all. But
well, sorry for keeping you up so long for this, but we definitely had fun, hopefully.
I think so.
Yes.
And I look forward to, as it turns out, I'm going to work earlier than I thought tomorrow, which means hopefully I will be on time for our discussion of planes, trains, and automobiles tomorrow, which will be good. But I did want to say, for each film, I agree with Brittany. The cat song was catchy, very very catchy, and again, Katie overall was a fun character for me. But my favorite moment was the moment where the father still had the flowers sticking out of his nose even after he got turned into a puppet.
Alrighty, and my name is David Streggy. I'm normal. I do like to come on and talk talk with Septum here on the show. But I run a podcast that Septum and Jake and Roger are part of. And if you ever want to come on with us any time that you want.
Yep.
We lost him. We lost him.
Yeah, you muted yourself, Dave.
Sorry about that. My mic was being goofy. But if you wanted to come on anytime whatsoever, you're more than welcome to. It is Tuesdays normally around what is it? 8:30, 9:30.
But it'll be 7 tomorrow.
Be early tomorrow.
Movies. But I also go on my own channel called Delusions of Grandeur, where I do video pickups, video reviews, and whatnot. And hopefully, you get a chance to check out some of my stuff. And it's funny you mentioned DeviantArt. I used to be on DeviantArt constantly for my poetry, so. I think I was known as Vampire Lestat on there. So, but in any case, over to you, Brandon. Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do?
Well, this is my channel. If you're watching this channel, you should know very well what you're watching. But any case, with that, I did have a favorite scene. I really do like that that whole last action sequence at the end of the second movie. Though the whole flute scene with the puppets moving also had left a huge impression on me as a child.
I would like to say the same thing for me because I think we have very similar thoughts on either one of these two movies. But in any case, send us out.
But thank you all for enjoying this fairly long one. Next time, Roger's going to be picking for us. He is absent right now, but we'll have something lined up, hopefully in the near future.
Mm-hmm.
So with that,
there
you are.
I've been here all along. And this was remarkably quiet. Anyways, I've decided to go with Corpse Princess.
Ah, good one.
Good one.
Really, he may.
I've been meaning to dig into that one. So, well, we got something cool there. Did you have a favorite scene that you wanted to share with us, Roger?
Well, the one scene that really sticks to me is the March of the Puppets.
All right. Well, thank you all for joining us this evening. Of course, click that like button, share, and subscribe. And of course, subscribe to everybody here as well. Check out Embryo Arts. Check out Animazing if there's any spaces left. And of course, check out Delusions of Grandeur and Inside Movies Galore. You can actually get rid of me for most of it because most of his content doesn't have me on it. But you have to avoid Tuesdays. So with that being said, we'll see you on the next one.